Hello and welcome to the Otakus After Dark, the podcast by adult weebs for adult weebs. Grab your drink of choice and sit back and relax as we talk about if you should read scans and how has materialism taken a hold of the anime/manga community, and is it beneficial or detrimental? On today's podcast, I'm Dom Hoozle. I'm joined here with Exile Sentinel, aka Danielle,
Hello.
and Emily.
Hi.
So Danielle, why don't you start us off since you have the definition of scanlations?
All right. So, what is a scanlation? In a sense, the scanlation is a type of translation most common in the manga industry that is either scanned from its raw form, so take like Shonen Jump or Shoujo Beat, old magazines that some of us have read, or acquired digitally in some manner. The work is then translated into its projected language. So for us, it would be English. Then it is even localized at times, and then it is uploaded for free consumption on, say, the internet. That's the easiest place to get a scan. Um, Another way to think of a scanlation, though, is bootleg. People
Yeah.
think of it as bootleg work.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they get a lot of flack because they're bootlegs, but these guys do like a fair amount of work. You know, they have the people that um, take the raws and clean them up, and then they have redrawers, and then they have translators, and then they have people that put the text in. So like there's a lot that goes into this. This is essentially just like a normal production for any other normal publisher. The only
For sure. Some
difference,
people even go out of their way to get it fully colored. I've read full like colored
yeah,
scans and I was like, wow,
yeah,
that is intense. Interesting.
yeah. So I mean, a lot of work goes into these. Um, for some of them are just god awful. um, but it's essentially those people end up. These people become what the industry takes in. So these redrawers and translators and all of them, they gain their experience by doing these scanlations, and a lot of them have
That is
started
true.
out with this. A lot of fan subs for anime as well. Those a big one is Crunchyroll. They took in a big fan subbed um, group, and now they are official, but they weren't official when they first started.
It's definitely an interesting point that I totally did not think about, which I'm glad you brought up because that definitely is a pro because it kind of validates people's work and then helps expand the industry, you know?
Yeah.
It's wild.
So some other things that I wanted to cover about pros for scanlations, because so my stance on it is I'm very pro scanlation. I think it's only beneficial to the community, um, and the cons that I have aren't really don't really hurt the community too much with scanlations part, but it's on the community outside of scanlations hurting scanlations, and I'll get to that later on. But so one of the biggest things for me is it helps people discover series that they might have never touched, and then they might end up buying physical or digital versions, and so they can read those whenever in like a better format. And sometimes those are faster than the scanlations, but usually the scanlations, because they're putting out a chapter a month instead of one volume every what, six,
Few
7 months.
6 months.
Yeah. They'll tend to be faster, but essentially it's helping grow the community, because a lot of series that I've picked up in uh, uh, the recent years is I read the scans and then I was like, this is awesome. I really want to have a physical version of this. And then I went and I picked it up uh, physically. But I probably wouldn't like some of the titles are so outrageous that I just and the covers are just probably wouldn't have touched it otherwise. And a lot of them are actually series that I really enjoy as well. I would say like maybe My Dress Up Darling. I wouldn't have gotten into that for sure. The covers were a little they're they're appealing to me now, but back then it was like a little weird. I don't know if
Basic.
yeah, it's just like some anime girl making like googly eyes at you, and it's just like, I
It's not the like flashiest cover I've ever seen.
yeah, and the title's kind of weird too. It's got this like sexual undertone. I think if you don't know what the series is actually about, you know, by Dress Up Darling, it sounds like, and the foreign title, I know one of the, I don't know which country it's from, but one of the titles is My Dress Up Doll. So, you know,
Oh,
that's very,
that could be taken
yeah.
a different way.
But, so I don't know if I had gotten into it if I just knew that, even if I had read the synopsis on the back. There are certainly
So
series.
that's interesting to me. I just wanted to, because I find it, so I don't read scans, I never really have.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering, it's interesting that you said that you wouldn't have gotten into any series, a certain series, without the scans. And I'm just wondering, how do you go about finding out what these series are? Because for me, it would be the opposite. Like I would see something and I'd be like, well, they haven't released all the volumes yet, so I'm going to go read a scan, um, so I can finish up the series or whatever.
So do
But
you,
you're kind of saying it's the opposite, that you
So,
just
like, you
find
mean
a
in the
new
sense of
series.
just finding something from the beginning?
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering is how do you even
how do I
find these
determine what
series?
I'm gonna like? Um,
Yeah, based on the scan websites. Because for me, it would be like, oh, I'm already interested in this manga. I'm gonna go read the scans because it's not fully available in English.
I definitely will look it up based on like what genre I'm looking at for at the moment. Um and then I will either go based off of that or check like the main page and see what's being recommended at the time. And obviously I do look at the covers. People say don't judge a book by its cover, but it's going to draw me in to see if I like the artwork or not.
mhm.
But I will read like obviously the synopsis, and if that draws me in, I'll give it a chapter or two, like what's it gonna
Right.
like take like 10 minutes of my time? And if I don't
So
like
the
it, then I'll drop it, but I
so the
do try to make the effort to read a bit of
the
something.
the free aspect is probably then beneficial because you don't have to go out and buy the manga to see if you're interested in it. You can just give it a chance, and then if you hate it, you don't. There's no commitment involved.
For sure.
I think it's the free aspect and also the availability. So like you could do the same thing, and I'll get into this a little bit later. But you can do the same thing if you just go to like Barnes and Noble, and you could just sit there and read the
Yeah.
book. But Barnes and Noble isn't gonna always have all of the volumes, and other like retailers that and comic book shops and such. They won't always have all the volumes right there in stock for you to read. But
So like one recent series that I did this with and ended up buying it physically because I read it first through scans was uh Toilet Bound Hanako-kun. I had always like obviously seen pictures of it because the art is so beautiful, and I was like, like what is that series? I think I need to read it.
mhm.
And so I read the scans and I read up to like half of the first book or the first book, like the first volume. And I was like, okay, this is the one for me. So then I looked it up and I saw that at the time there was 5 volumes out. So I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna buy it. So I bought it all. And certain series, like if I'm really into it and I want to keep going after I bought it, and it's still, ongoing in Japan and the scans are out, and I really want to know what it is then I will continue reading the scans. But most of the time, if I'm not like too worried about knowing what's happening next, I'll just stick to like collecting and reading it strictly physical after that. So I'm not like dependent on the scans, you know?
Yeah. So, for me, I would say 99% of the series that I get, I read the scans first. And then there's like that 1% that it's captivates me while I'm in the store. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to impulse buy. And it's not always the best idea because I'll end up hating it. And then I'm stuck with this random volume of something that I don't like. And then I have to figure out whether I'm going to resell it or if I'm going to just give it away or whatever. Because usually when I get a series, I'm not going to get to that for maybe a month, maybe more. Just because I have so many other series that I pick up and keep up to date with that it's just impossible to read them all immediately. So there's no real, unless something's like damaged and I see that and I need to take it back. Otherwise, I'm not going to go back to the store to get a refund. Or I can't. But so a big thing for me on reading scans and how I find a series. So now I've kind of gotten into my groove. So I know what genres I like, and I know I can pick out what I'll probably enjoy by a really helpful thing is on the scan sites they'll have tags, so they'll say what genres this is in. So if I just want to read something that's kind of happy-go-lucky, I'm gonna see the psychological horror tags and I'm gonna be like, oh, that one's definitely not the one I want to read right now. But in a store, the cover could be misleading for sure. There's certain ones that I've read that are just like way darker than they outwardly appear. And so for me, being able to read those tags was a big thing early on, where I could see, because I didn't know what genres I liked. So for me, I didn't know what isekai was. I didn't really, I saw romance and stuff like that, but I didn't really know the difference between romance and shoujo and josei and all that early on. But if I saw the other tags and I saw maybe it was say drama, comedy, stuff like that, I'd be like, all right, I could go for like something on down those lines. And even if the cover didn't completely hook me, and the synopsis didn't completely hook me, I had those tags as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, like it is kind of easier for us because we've, been reading for 10 plus years now, so we kind of know where we want to go, when we want to go.
Yeah.
But like things like manga decks and things like that make it really easy for people who aren't so familiar with it or familiar with their taste or what they want to, get into. They make it very easy to read through it and kind of get an understanding before you even click chapter 1.
Yeah, and I think that goes into my next pro, which is it helps grow the community, because these people would not be able to get. Before, it wasn't, you didn't have all of this access to it. You went to the library, or you went to a bookstore, and maybe they had some things, but they didn't really carry too much of manga. And now, not only is it like widely carried across the board, but it's also like widely available. Like, it's so much easier with the internet constantly evolving, and all these sites coming out and all these third-party sellers. You can get access to these series that you normally wouldn't have had access to. Because when I first started out, it was just like the basics. You had like Naruto, Yu-Gi-Oh, you had like maybe a shoujo from Tokyo Pop and stuff like that. But it wasn't a huge selection. You had one side or the other, and there wasn't all this in between stuff. But another thing is, not everybody has the money or stable income to buy manga directly.
Sure, I know I didn't as a kid.
So if you're saying scans are bad because they detriment the community, that means you go out every time. You don't use all these third-party sellers that give you great deals. You're getting it full price for whatever it is. So for a Horimiya volume, that's $13 a volume. So you're paying $13 each time. And one volume, that's not bad. But there's 14 volumes. So it adds up over time. And if you're into a series that's longer, like Yona of the Dawn, which is 27 volumes, it seriously adds up. And that's a commitment at that point. And if you don't have a ton of disposable income, if you're, you're poor, maybe you're a student, a teen that your parents are giving you an allowance, or even you're just using Christmas money, if you are, maybe you lost your job, and all of this. So, there's a whole bunch of factors that could come into you not being able to afford these full prices for manga to buy directly, and support the publishers, because you're supporting the publishers in the end. I don't know necessarily what every deal that the mangakas have, but we're supporting the English publishers who have already paid to license the stuff from the Japanese publishers, and the Japanese publishers have already paid their mangakas for their sales already. So they're just kind of, maybe they get a little extra money on top, maybe, but it trickles down. So you're not really supporting the mangaka directly. You are and you aren't, if you're paying full price, I guess, is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But that's,
I mean, there are some mangakas though that are irritated with the scanlation industry. They don't want their work to be translated and uploaded
which
unofficially.
is weird. I think I can understand the raws. I can understand why they wouldn't want the raw up, because then nobody's going out and getting the magazine and reading it if it's in a if it's in a magazine like Shonen Jump and such. But I could never understand why they would be upset about the translation that would give them, in sense, more sales, because they'll be reaching a wider audience now. In fact, I would say the only thing I can think of is when the scans are terrible, and it hurts their art, because it makes people reflect that the art isn't as good. And if the scan translation is terrible, it also reflect their story, so they'll think, oh, the author is not really good at this, and it doesn't translate as well into English, and you need someone that's more seasoned and can kind of get a better grip of what it would be if it was in English, because not everything in Japan, especially humor, doesn't transfer over.
For sure. I definitely made a note about how localization can be detrimental to a piece of work, because of the scan. But you get that in certain officially released mangas too. So it's kind of hard, because it's you can run the risk on scans, but you can also run the risk on official. I have all of Battle Royale. And it definitely is written for the time that they printed it. It's very hey dude, this is cool. I'm pretty sure the original scan writing of it was not very rock and roll in your face. That they wanted to do that to the demographic they were trying to. Yeah. And I have ran into a few that the localization has been kind of iffy, but I
Well,
don't think it's been too bad.
well, also like the publications can mess up too. So I was
Yeah.
rereading Horimiya for like the umpteenth time, um, and you know some of the things that I notice going into it, rereading it, is like some of the bad translations, like words that just don't make any sense. Like they didn't, I guess they didn't see that when they like double checked, or they didn't double check at all. And then there's also like pages that kind of look like it was printed awfully, and it's like um, it ruins the art that definitely probably looked a lot better before they kept they probably ran it through a machine and redid it digitally and so forth, and it just ends up chopping it up and ruining
It can
those
definitely turn
few
people
art
off.
page. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it that kind of stuff can actually take, very much take you out of the story too. So you could be engrossed, and then you see a page that's like all messed up, and you're like, oh, um, what is up with
I
this?
personally ran into two scans that have been either uploaded out of order or missing chapters, which is obviously a big con.
Mhm.
Like I've tried to get into, what was the most recent one? Hell's Paradise. That's a pretty big manga at the moment
Yeah.
that I was like, okay, well, I'll read the scan to see if I want to pick it up. And I gotta say, I don't think the chapter one that was uploaded was actually chapter one, because I was in the midst of like some action and it put me off because I was just so confused. And people are like, what are you talking about? You should read it. It's really good. So you can run into those misses in a scan.
Mhm.
It's not often, but it can, put you off and hurt your experience with the series.
So, I want to go back to um, the publishers, and because the anti-scans are mainly they are run by the publishers. Like the publishers are like, don't read scans, don't do it, buy the official. Um, and you do have some publishers that like really couldn't care less, certainly, but they won't openly say it. But when they like put out their surveys, they're kind of like, hey, which ones have you read in scans and you kind of want us to publish?
Oh,
Because
for sure. They're going through the forums and seeing what people are talking about so
yeah,
that they can sign them and be able to publish them.
yeah. But so the big thing is that it takes away from sales for publishers, as there is, it takes away from official sales, is what people are saying. But the issue I have with that is the people who don't buy and only read the scans, we're going to find a way not to pay it anyways. Whether that be checking it out at a library, reading it on a torrent website somewhere buried, or just sitting at a bookstore and reading it and then putting it back on the shelf. Those people weren't going to be sales to begin with.
Yeah, if
Hey,
someone's
see,
not going to spend money, they won't.
I kind of agree with you on that and kind of don't at the same time. I think the point is that it's almost more easily accessible, and so it kind of incentivizes people not to pay for it, because going to your library and taking it out is kind of one thing. But if you can just sit in your room and read all the scans in the world that you want, there's not necessarily a reason for you to go out and purchase the official version. And like obviously from a collector's perspective, the people that are reading scans are going to go out and they're going to buy it anyway, presumably, if they like it. But I think that perhaps it may discourage people from
So,
buying the official copy,
so I can agree
because
with
it's
that.
just so easy.
I can agree with that like halfway. So I think the people who are going to buy are still going to buy. But there's series like that are very long that I think are detrimental with the scans keeping up to date. So like I talked about Yono of the Dawn earlier and how it was 27 volumes. That's a huge commitment. And it comes to a point where should you, since it's officially translated, should you stop and only let give whatever you had out and stop translating it and let other people go buy the official release, and then you're cutting off the people who can't afford the official release, or but then you're also cutting off the people who are just using this and not going to support anything, and they have the money to support, but they just want to keep that, and that becomes a negative for the community.
Right,
So
and
it's
and
like,
I think that's my main thing, because again, I want to just say, like, I don't know much about scans, and I'm kind of indifferent to whether people want to actually read it or not. But for the anti side, because we've been talking a lot about the pros, but I think for me, something that I kind of don't really like is the fact that even if somebody really enjoys a series and they really love it and they support it and they think it's great, and they're calling themselves a fan of it, and yet they're not supporting the industry and the content and supporting the creator of it. Like, to me, it's like, if you really enjoy something, then I think that you should go out and purchase the original source. But I think that there are people out there that are like, well, I don't have to because I can just read the scan of it. And to me, it's like, if you are, I think that if you're invested in the community, that there should be a little bit of support there, especially if you claim that you're invested in a series.
That's just how it is with any kind of industry. Like, take the music industry, for example. Back in the days of LimeWire, where everybody was downloading whatever they wanted at any time, and not buying CDs or things like that. I think there's always going to be people that will not pay if they don't have to, that will just take what they want, like what they can get. But there's always going to be a lot more people that will want to pay for the effort and the work and
Right.
yeah.
the
All right. Well, I was gonna say, so that gets into my con, which is what I think the biggest thing that takes away from the official release is there's the resellers, which are like your websites that they got it used or got it for whatever reason, but they didn't pay. They paid someone else, didn't pay the publisher, and they're selling it at a lower price. There's the third-party sellers, obviously, your eBays and stuff like that. And then there's the whole thing with publishers charging so much for manga now that it just becomes hard to justify the price. So, for example, there was one manga that I was interested in picking up, but I couldn't justify the price to me because it looked like it was like 3 chapters. It was very paper thin manga, and it was, I think, over $15. And to put that into retrospective, Horimiya is $13 a volume, like I said, at retail price. And it's a normal size manga. It's probably your standard size. And that was 5 times as thick and bigger than the manga that I picked up, and I was like, why would I pay over $15 for this one when I can get this one for so much less? And I think the issue is the publishers themselves are overcharging too. But at the same time, the people that are buying, they're like, oh, I want to get some physicals because I want to support the official release, but I don't want to pay that full price on Amazon. Forget that. That's like $1 or $2 off. Nah, I don't need that. I'm going to go on this third-party website, and I'm going to buy it from them because they have it for $6. And it's like, that also hurts the industry because of the prices being so big and them not having enough sales, I guess. And if they do have a sale, sometimes it's not even worth it in the end because you can get a better price usually sometimes on another website that isn't their main website. just with the singles.
Right. This actually kind of makes me think too about the people that resell manga, which is totally fine, like do whatever you want. But I will say that I don't think that you can be anti-scan if you are somebody that also goes out and purchases manga from just some random person on eBay or something, because that also doesn't help the industry whatsoever or do anybody any favors. I feel like
Yeah,
they're
the
kind of
publisher.
basically on the same level.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
so
publisher, the mangaka, they're not getting the money. They
They're
already
Right.
got said money.
Yeah.
and I know that there are a lot of people that do say that are like, oh, well, you have to support the industry. Like they're super anti-scan. But at the same time, they're the people that are going out and spending,
The dollar
$1 for
deals.
for 100 volumes or something. I don't know, something
If
crazy
you're
like that. It's like,
if you're getting the manga that cheap, you're not
You know,
supporting
exactly.
the publisher,
Yeah.
and you can't be anti-scan. I am sorry. That's like one point that drives me insane.
Right.
If
It doesn't make
if you're
sense. It's
not
very
paying full
contradictory.
price for it, then you're not essentially paying. Now you can have a discount, sure. There can be a little bit of a discount. I think Right Stuff probably has like they do deals with the publishers and stuff like that to get it at the prices they have. But if you're getting it any cheaper, like from some seller that's like
I'm
the
talking
website
about
from a
I'm talking about
website,
some random person.
yeah, if you're getting it from a company that's like, it's like, oh, we're selling this for $6. There's something going on. There's no way they got that down to $6 with using the regular price. They bought that from someone else, and that wasn't the publisher. And then another thing, on the flip side, stuff like eBay, they'll overcharge too. There's insane.
That's also true. Yeah. Especially if something's like out of print or something, it can get really crazy.
And out of print really hurts the industry as well, because then people are trying to spend all this money to get these out of print volumes, and then when the publisher prints something else, it's like, well, I already spent like $300 on this volume you had out of print, so what am I gonna do now? I don't have any money to pay for that, so that hurts you too.
Yeah. So I mean, so
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like I feel like I just don't like the hypocrisy there, because I know that there's so many people out there that are just like anti-scan, but they go out and buy, used manga, and I feel like it's kind of on the same level. Like personally, I have paid retail for all of my volumes. I mean, I live in Canada, and there are less places to get it, and I just don't like purchasing used manga. That's a personal thing for me, but I just, if you have that stance of being anti-scan, then you cannot go out and purchase used manga. I'm sorry. I'm telling you right now, you have to stop doing that, because that's hypocritical.
So that can get
my
us
opinion.
into elitism and like materialism as well. So a lot of elitists will be like, oh, with their like large disposable income, they'll be like, oh, you gotta buy all the physicals, and stuff like that, and that hurts the community as well, because you kind of put down the people that don't have as much money as you, and those same elitists will also be the same people buying it from third-party sellers and not paying the full price, because they're like, oh, why would you pay the full price? You can go to this website right here. And it's like, all right, so you should be anti-scan, is essentially what you're telling me.
Real quick, in case anybody doesn't know what elitism is, it's like the advocacy and existence of an elite as a dominating element in a system or society. And I do think that the manga community does suffer from a form of elitism when it comes to collecting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There definitely, as the community grows and people show off what they got, it's definitely like there are people who come off very elitist, that like, hey, look at what I've accumulated. I'm so much, well, not necessarily I'm so much better. There are some people that could come off that way, but even just showing that off can make someone else feel less. Especially looking if they're just starting a collection, or if they want to start a collection. Like the whole ideal of hauls. I know people get a lot of like endorphins from watching other people get these huge hauls and spend hundreds of dollars on books, but you know that's not sustainable. Not
Yeah.
everybody can do that. Um,
So
I know I can't be going out and buying like $300 worth of stuff every week.
Right.
And as much as I love watching people open that, I know sometimes I get the itch that like, oh man, they got all those books. I feel like I need to go order stuff, you know?
So that actually, I have so much to say about this because I think an observation that I've kind of made about the manga, more so the manga community, but the anime community as well online, especially in more recent years, is just the excessive amount of haul and collection videos that seem to have taken over YouTube.
mhm,
Like you can see on almost every YouTube channel now that every other video, if not every video, is either a shopping video or a haul video or showing off their collection. And it's become increasingly rare, from my perspective, to see content that's actually about the community. So, first of all, I want to say that I don't judge people that are posting these videos because, like Danielle said, like I enjoy the content, I consume the content, and I understand why people post them because it's super popular and it's
mhm.
easy to gain views and subscribers by posting those things. But my main issue is like the fact that from my perspective, the community has really moved away from the heart and soul of the hobby, which is like the enjoyment of manga essentially. Like you don't see discussion videos or reviews or recommendations. It's just all about the material aspect of collecting. And with how much emphasis is put on uh, hauling manga, it really makes me question, you know, are people doing this because they enjoy it, or are they doing it because there's some sort of addiction to spending or some sort of competition that they feel that they need to fulfill um, for their YouTube channel purposes? Like it's kind of disheartening almost from
Yeah.
what I've been able to observe.
Yeah. So, as we're talking about this materialism, so being in this community for so long and being on YouTube for so long, a big thing that I saw back in the day when anatubing was very much first starting out is it was the same thing as manga tubing is now. It was a lot of collections, a lot of hauls. Now, anatubing had it a little bit rougher, whereas you could buy a $60 anime and only get half a season, while for full price for manga that's like a $10 volume, full price, you could get 6 manga out of that, which could go beyond the whole anime season. So essentially manga tubing has it a little bit easier with, you can get more bang for your buck if you're paying full price, but essentially they're going through the same steps. So anatubing started out hauls and collections and slowly kind of rose into what it is now, where there's all this different kind of content. And manga tubing is now in that infancy again. It's just hauls and collections, and then you have like the organizational videos, which I essentially see as just hauls, or I see as collection videos with like extra bits in between, because you're essentially
Yeah.
seeing the person's collection. And
I mean, it's the same principle
yeah,
idea.
but I'm not one to completely like knock it. I feel bad that because I contribute to that as well, because the videos that do well are when I post 70 volume month haul or whatever, and collection videos and stuff like that. Those will get 10 times as many views as my regular just reviews of things, and
Right.
other content. And so it's more beneficial as a YouTuber, as a manga tuber, to post those types of videos. But are we kind of is that, should we be doing that, is essentially what I'm saying. Are we just adding to the issue of this materialism where people are spending money that they don't have or is it on them to essentially know that what their limits are and to be okay with, they might not be able to afford all the manga that they want, and it's on them more so than the manga tubers. So is it on the manga tubers to essentially kind of start to, switch the content up and help with that kind of addiction that's there, or is it on the people that are addicted to that content to make sure that they're doing healthy habits? And I think essentially it's both. It's on both.
That's definitely a loaded question that I don't even think we have the answer for. As someone who takes in a lot of manga tube, like I said, it does give me that serotonin that I need when I can't spend the money myself. But I think it definitely has to come down to, like, do I really need this physical item? Will I actually, like, mentally benefit from it? Like, will I consume the story that's actually coming in? Because there are people that just buy it just to have it on their shelves and not read it.
I love that you said that. I love that you said that, because half the time, especially when I watch haul videos, something I've noticed is that people will say, "Oh, I just picked this up," and they have no idea why they picked it up. They don't know anything about the series. They just picked it up just to say that they can own it, basically. And it's like that. I feel like that's such a unhealthy way to collect. And I don't think it benefits anybody in the situation, because what you're doing is just spending money for no reason, essentially, on series that you don't have any interest in, possibly. So
yeah, I think
I'm glad that you brought that up.
I think we could talk all day about like things in collecting of what you shouldn't do, and a couple of those things are definitely picking up series just because they're popular, even if you're not gonna like them, even if there's also series that just look cool. I've been as someone who has an art degree and stuff like that, when I see something that's like nicely done, like graphic design wise, and like it's nicely put together and the cover is nice and the art's beautiful, I'm almost tempted to buy it. But it's like, but am I gonna read it is the biggest question for me.
Right. And that goes for out of print series as well. Like, people are just buying out of print series because it's rare and they want it in their collection. But it's like, really think about whether you want it. Like, you have to really internalize that,
And resellers hurt
Back
that
around.
too.
You can always read those through scanlation, Save some money from trying to collect your $300 volume.
Well, that's
and then maybe one day you'll know if you want to get it, and if not, you saved yourself $300.
Yeah, so I mean, I've seen that firsthand, especially with resellers. There was a volume of, so I try to collect it when I can. When I see a good enough deal, I try to get, because oh my goddess, the manga is out of print. Dark Horse always puts it out of print. They were printing the omnibuses, but then they stopped for whatever reason. They were like, it's not making us enough money. And it's like, well, it's an old series. You need to get people into it. You need to start advertising it more, stuff like that. But Dark Horse is Dark Horse. So but what I saw on eBay is like there was a seller that was selling a volume for like $1, and it was like, oh cool, get that. But before I could, another seller had bought it off of them. As soon as they got that manga in, they tried to resell it for $400, which is absolutely insane.
Insanity.
And
right.
That also hurts the community. It's like, well, now I'm not going to buy that. Now I'm going to wait. I might wait and see if it comes. But other than that, I'll probably just read the scans because I can't get access to the manga because it's out of print. And another thing for scans is, some of those series don't even come over to be printed in the first place. So the only way to read it and get to enjoy these series is to read these scans and hope that if you put in enough surveys for the publisher, that eventually they might print it.
With newer series that are coming out, like Viz has a really good deal to read all of their stuff online. They even have free chapters, which is how I got into one of their newest series, Phantom Seer. I personally do not have a Viz account, just because it's something I can't really afford at the moment. So I do read the free that they have on there, and I have read the rest through scans and then caught back up because new chapters come out free. But you're not always guaranteed that stories that you read strictly online through publishers, like through the Japanese translations, are going to make it to the West.
Yeah.
So then you're kind of stuck in scanlations.
Well, I think we covered our topics, guys. Does anybody have anything else to add?
Yes,
Oh,
of course. I always have something to add.
okay.
Always.
My apologies.
Of course. Well, you know what? Just to wrap it up, because I don't want to dwell on this too much. Even though it's something that I've been just thinking about so much. I feel like overall, my final thought would just be that I think that the community has so much more to offer than hauls and collection videos, and I just wish that people would create more content about their love for reading manga and watching anime. Um, you know, and I encourage content creators to think about what they're putting out there and what they're contributing to the community, and if they're contributing to this like materialist mindset. And I think that includes us now as well, because and what we put out there and the ideas that we are presenting to the world, because I want the community to be a positive place. And I just feel like right now, I feel like it's kind of a competitive and negative space when it comes to the collection and home videos. So I just hope that content creators will think a little bit more about that when they're making videos in the future.
So talking on that just a little bit, I'm glad you said that before we wrapped up. But so, what do you think? What do you guys think? What kind of content should people post instead of, haul videos? What would be something interesting to see from the manga community that doesn't include essentially them going out and buying these hauls or showing off what they have in their collection?
I definitely would like to see like we made a podcast ourselves to talk about some of our favorite series and genres. Not saying everybody has to make a podcast, but YouTubers that just make videos on their own, can talk about series that, really touch them, got them through things, even like psychological and like analyzations of themes in stories. I want to have those like book talk discussions and be able to like type back to them in the comments.
Yeah, that would be
I love that. I think that's really interesting. I think for me, there are two things, and I'll shout out a manga tuber that I found semi recently, called That Manga Kid. And what he does is he does these really in-depth reviews of manga, which I love because it's like I can sit there and find out about all these new and like obscure series that I never would have thought of picking up. And then the other thing I think, and probably something that I'm more interested in, is something similar to what we're doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be in podcast form, but the discussions that we're having, I want more people to have them because I think that they're interesting, and I think that the community could benefit from these things. So I would love it if more popular creators came out and started talking about the things that they've observed about the community or the issues that they see in it, or just controversial topics in the community. I think all of that stuff would be entertaining.
I think that's a good way to plug our Discord, um, as a nice way
Oh.
for our listeners to interact with us and have those kind of discussions, in real time.
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
Discord has become a nice place. It's how we met, um,
Yes.
and be able to talk about what we're reading, what we're into, what we should get into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I think we should plug everything actually. So
Yeah,
guys,
now that it's official.
yeah.
Yes.
So guys, if you want to stay in contact and up to date with the podcast, we do have our Discord, Otakus After Dark. It is listed in all of this stuff will be listed hopefully in the description, but also it's on our YouTube channel itself. If you're listening to this on YouTube, then just simply go to our channel and look at our about page. Then we have our Instagram and Twitter, which are both also Otakus After Dark.
For the Sakura.
Yeah. Look for our little flower symbol, a little sakura. But yeah, I mean that was great, guys. I really
Yeah,
appreciated
I think
this
we touched
talk
on a
today.
lot of good points.
Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Thank you for joining us for drinks today, and have a lovely evening.